welcome back to my channel and to today's video where I am going to be showing you my May reading journal updates, and I will be talking about my May reading. If this is the first of my reading journal videos you've watched, I will have a link down below to the playlist with all of the previous videos, including my setup videos. How I do these videos is that I work on my reading journal off camera because I just find it too stressful to do on camera. But I then come here, show you all the spreads, talk about what I've done, and I will also analyze my May reading for you. This journal is an 8x8 Archer and Olive. I love these journals. They are just, in my opinion, perfect for reading journal spreads. I love the size. I'm really in my flow with my reading journal at this size, and as I mentioned, I will have links to my setup videos down below, so if you did want to recreate any of the spreads, that's probably the best video for you to check out, because I will obviously talk a little bit more about the spreads there. So that is all the setup stuff. Let's get into the video. So I have not made any changes here. I really do need to add a 2025 though. I'll try and remember to do that this time. I have my reading goals on the left. I did tick off complete 5 series, which I'd actually completed by the last video but forgot to mark it off. So I have now ticked it off. I'm not doing very well on my other goals, but I do think that completing a series goal is a really good win for me, so we'll take that. On the right hand side, I have my anticipated releases, and I did read Beg, Borrow or Steal by Sarah Adams this month, so I did get to mark that off, which was really fun. Then I have my bookshelf star reads, so I only read 6 books in May, which is still good. It's just I can do better, but 6 is okay. It's definitely better than April anyway, so we'll take that. As you can see by the colour scheme that we have on the right, it was a pretty good reading month on average. I think it was like a 3.8 on average, so pretty good. But I just feel sad when I look at this spread because I'd marked out like just over 100 books on here, and I think I've read like 25 books so far. So we're probably going to complete up to here by the end of the year. And that's a bit sad, but it's okay. I'm trying to be kind to myself this year. I'm just having a funny reading year. So if it's slower, it's okay. I have my favourite read spread. So Beg, Borrow or Steal did take my #1 spot for May. It is a bit sad though, because not one of these was a 5-star. So that is really sad, and really I think leans into that like having a funny reading year. To have not had a 5-star at all by May is just unheard of for me. But we persevere, and hopefully I'll have one for June. Then we have my 25 books in 2025, and I haven't made any progress on this. I mean, maybe if I did make some progress, we might have some more 5 stars, because, you know, they've done pretty well, like at least 4 stars for nearly all of them. But yeah, as I say, funny reading year so far. Then I have my 12 recommendations from 12 friends. I haven't made any progress on these, even though these are all books I'm keen. I mean, I read one more chapter of Final Empire, so I guess I've made small progress there. Then I have my book box books challenge, and again, no progress here, like not even one is ticked off, which is embarrassing. However, I am nearly 50% through A Feather So Black now. It's slow going. I think I probably should have DNF'd it, but I've already purchased the sequel through Fairy Loot, so I'm kind of like, well, I may as well just keep going, but I don't think it's helping the whole reading thing. It's just not a book for me, the writing style anyway. But anyway, I'm going to keep going at this point. And then I'm hoping to read Nectar of the Wicked this month because the sequel comes out later in the year. So I would like to know whether to pre-order it from Fairy Loot. So I would like to say you'll see progress on this in my next video, but I guess I can't make any promises. Then on this page, I have my arc tracker. So I have read 2 more arcs since my last video, which is good going. I still have 3 or 4 arcs to go, and that's also why I struggle to get through my physical TBR. But anyway, 2 of them ticked off is good. And then on the right hand side, I have my most successful challenge. So these alphabet stickers are from Plannerphase. I do PR for Plannerphase, so you can use my code CAT to save 10% on your orders and add my name in notes to seller to pick up a seasonal freebie. This is one I just put in because I had the stickers. I'm not actively participating in this, but it's going well. So books I added, Sounds Like Love went in for S, and then I did put in Undermining of Twyla and Frank for you. It does start with the word the, but I don't think I'm going to find another book for you, so I felt it was fine to put in here. I do wish now that I hadn't put The Lighting Thief in for T. I wish I'd put it in for L, but it's fine. Like, I don't hate it enough to change it, but I'm sort of like changing how I do this challenge. And I think this is honestly a challenge that I would keep in my reading journal now every year going forward, because it's just really fun to see how well it goes, even though I'm not actively tracking it. Then I have my US states tracker. So this US state sticker is from Scribble Prints Co. And again, I'm not actively tracking this challenge, but it's just a fun way to see how many US states I read predominantly with my romance books. We've made good progress because Beg, Borrow or Steal was set in Kentucky, Booked for the Summer in Massachusetts, and Sounds Like Love in North Carolina. So some great progress, especially on the right-hand side, which is interesting. But yeah, I'm really happy with how that progress is going. And then I have my romance bingo on the right-hand side. So I really struggle with romance bingo because I don't always find it easy to identify what tropes are in a book. So I've only added one more, which is Booked for the Summer, which I put in for billionaire. Now, he does openly say in the book he's not a billionaire, he's only a millionaire. But the female main character reads billionaire romances, and it's kind of like the point of the book is that he's almost a billionaire. So I decided it was fine, and maybe I could add millionaire in future, I don't know. I maybe could have added in Beg, Borrow or Steal for enemies to lovers, but really it's a rivals to lovers, and I already have that marked off, so I decided to leave that one off. And so I don't feel like I made any other progress on these. Sometimes I think, like, while I'm reading the book, like, oh, you could put this one in, like, the trope is there, and then I forget the book afterwards. So maybe it doesn't deserve to go on the bingo if that happens. Then I have some blank pages, and then I have my priority series. So I have marked one off in Undermining of Twyla and Frank. I don't know if that's the series name, but either way, we've made one book of progress there. I've made progress in other series, but not in any of the priority series. So no more progress here, but this page is not looking too bad. Then I have my TBR spread. So this is where I mark off every book that I have on my physical, audiobook and Kindle TBR up until the end of 2024. And then I stick in the book covers for when I read them to try and motivate me to read more of my TBR. And they are in the order that I added them to the TBR, which means that you can see I'm not making any progress on the older books on my shelves. And I think that that really says something about me that I don't want to acknowledge. No progress on this page either, but we did add in the Undermining of Twyla and Frank here, so that was something, I guess. Then I do, in the final page, add in the new books that are from 2025, just as an interesting experiment to see whether I'm reading the newer books versus the older books, and that's absolutely what's happening. Kindle TBR, I didn't add any because the two books I read on ebook were ARCs. And then for audiobook TBR, I added Well of Lost Plots at the end because it was a new one that I purchased with an Audible credit. Then I have another blank page, and then I have my TBR bingo, which I have not made any progress on and I'm in a funny place with as well. So I'm just going to skip straight on to my May spread. So this is my May spread. I think I forgot to say that all of my witches are from Maragonosuli. I filmed that opening like 3 times. So they are all from Maragonosuli, who probably most of you would recognize because she is a real staple in the bullet journal and reading journal community. But I am just a sucker for her art. So she does feature throughout my reading journal, and for the month of May I've gone for this like orange autumnal pattern because I always match the witches to my stickers from Thumbelina print, which are my cover page. So it does mean that I'm going for a very orange theme for May because those were the witches I had that went the best, even though they're probably Halloweeny witches really. The paper in the background is just an image that I found on Google because I didn't have any papers that I felt worked. I do feel like this month is a real mixture of oranges and browns. I don't know if it entirely goes together, but it's cute enough for me. So in May, as I said, I read 6 books. I read a total of 2,414 pages. My average rating was 3.8, pretty good. It would be great one month to hit a 4, but 3.8 is pretty good. And I didn't DNF any books because apparently I'm not in my DNF era, even when I'm rating books low. And that is probably also contributing to the weird reading year. I do also record my YouTube and Instagram stats. It's not something I'm like actively tracking, but it is useful for me just to generally see the growth that I have on my social medias. So, you know, we've had a steady rise for both. My growth is very small on both YouTube and Instagram. I'm not going viral or anything around here, but it's still really nice to see a little bit of progress, and especially on Instagram, which was like going down for a while. I'm really trying to post more on Instagram. I'm editing my photos differently, and I think that's helping. So it's nice to see a steady increase on both of those. It would be amazing if we hit 2,000 on both social medias by the end of the year, but I don't know, we'll see. It's not something I'm going to hold myself to. At the end of the day, I don't control the algorithm and I don't control who subscribes to me. But then let me show you my sort of stats spreads. So I did remember to use an additional witch this month, so I'm really happy with that. So here's the 6 books. So Spiral by Balcabra, I gave 4 stars. The Undermining of Twyla and Frank by Megan Bannon, I gave 4 stars. Beg, Borrow or Steal by Sarah Adams, I gave 4.5 stars. The Well of Lost Pots by Jasper Ford, I gave 3 stars. Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston, which I read as an ARC, I gave 4 stars. And Book for the Summer, which was an ARC by Catherine Freeman, I gave 2.5 stars. I can't wait to talk to you in my wrap up. And then at the bottom, I do have the books I am continuing. So I'm still reading The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This is going to be here the whole year, okay? I'm really not actively making progress in it. It's just here for the laughs now. Feather So Black, as I say, I'm about 50% through now, maybe 48%. And then Something Rotten by Jasper Ford. I'm trying to get through this series before an event with Jasper Ford, but that event is this month. It's in June. So there's no way I can read like what needs to be 4 books, I think, maybe including the one I'm reading, but I don't think I can do it. I'm not prioritizing it enough. I'm not enjoying them enough to get through them that quickly. So it's a bit of a shame, but anyway, I will continue to persevere at least for this month. And then it would be nice to listen to something else on audio because I really like audiobook listening and it's a shame that I'm not loving these ones. Then on the right-hand side, I have my stats. So for genres, I read 4 romance, there's a surprise, 1 fantasy romance and 1 sci-fi. For format, I read 6 books, all in novels, no graphic novels or anything this month, which is also not contributing to having a higher reading number because I do usually read a lot of graphic novels and I've barely read any this year. For source, 3 of them were ebook, 2 of them I read physically and 1 I listened to on audio. 6 of them were all from authors I've read from before. So you would like to think that would mean for a higher reading month, but apparently not. For audience, 4 of them were adult and then 2 of them were new adult. So I think I'm classing Spiral as new adult. What other one am I classing as new adult? I would say all of the others there are adult books. Yeah, I think that's just another one where I've tagged it incorrectly, which happens all the time on my spreadsheet, because realistically I would class the other 5 as adult. And then for series, 4 of those were part of a series and 2 of them were standalone, which are the 2 arcs. So that's pretty good, I think. And what I would like to track here is whether it's finishing a series or continuing a series, and I need to make that change on my reading spreadsheet. For country, 4 of them were set in the US, 1 in a fantasy world and 1 set in England. For publication year, we had 1 in 2024, 4 in 2025. So I would consider that pretty good. Obviously, 2 of them are arcs, but still. And then 1 from 2003, which is the Jasper Ford book. And then for acquired, 3 of them were NetGalley because The Undermining of Twyla and Frank, it is a book I was given on NetGalley over a year ago. So that's technically where I first got it, but I do own the physical Fairy Loot version. But I read it on ebook. 2 of them I got from the works, which was Spiral and Beg, Borrow or Steal, and then 1 of them was Audible, which was Well of Lost Plots. So those are the stats. Let me switch to face cam because I think it's probably more interesting for you, even though I don't remotely look camera ready today, and let me talk to you about the books I read. Okay, we're going to do my update like this because the lighting is like all over the place in the conservatory today, and when I had my normal bookshelves behind me, my face was like one side completely in darkness. So we're going for like fully in the sun and you can get some really glorious like look at my puffy eyes. First up, I read Spiral by Balcabra, which is the sequel to Collide. I enjoyed Collide. I gave it 3.5 stars, but I was really just reading it to get to Spiral because this one is the ballet book. And if you don't know, I have a musical theatre degree. I did ballet for like 15 years of my life. So I was really keen to get to this one. So this is a new adult hockey romance series. If you like the Icebreaker series by Hannah Grace, I would really recommend this series to you because it is very similar, especially the first one. I would say is like almost beat for beat similar, so I would really recommend that if you like Icebreaker. We have Sage, who kind of doesn't feature in book 1. She is trying to become a professional ballet dancer, but she is really struggling, and she ends up being asked by her uncle, who is linked to the hockey team that we know from book 1, to dance at a like hockey charity event. And for various reasons, she ends up being convinced by Aidan from book 1 to bid to go on a date with Eli. It's one of those like you have to pay money to go on a date with the hockey player things. The girl who's bidding for Eli is like a stalker, so Aiden's like, please bid on my friend, I'll give you the money to do it. So Sage and Eli do go on this date and they have a good enough time, but they agree that they're not looking for the same things, they're not going to actually date each other, but they do have a benefit to fake date each other. Eli has got a really bad social media representation for sleeping around, which he doesn't even do, it's just they've decided that he does that, and he really needs to shake this image because he's joined a new professional hockey team. So we're like out of university with Eli and Aiden now, and Eli is like really struggling. He's just not doing well, and the media attention is really not helping. And then Sage feels like she needs a social media presence in order to be able to have a career in ballet, which is really sad, but I think is very true. We see a lot of musical theatre performers who only get auditions, etc., because they have a social media following. I'm not saying they don't deserve it for putting in the work, but I do think it's an interesting commentary there which feels accurate. So these two agree to fake date each other, and obviously over the course of the story realize they have feelings for each other. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. I think it is a very fun fake date. I would have liked a bit more ballet because that was really why I was watching it, and we got a lot of hockey. Bal Cabra clearly knows a lot about hockey. There was a lot of hockey in book 1 and there's a lot of hockey in book 2, and it suffered from the same issues of book 1 of like, if you don't know hockey, it doesn't really explain stuff to you, and we just like, ice hockey is just not a thing in the UK, and whilst I like hockey romance, I do kind of like need people to bring me along with them, so that was a bit of a shame, and I would have liked a lot more ballet. There really is very little ballet in this. But I do think that we have a really good romance between two really likable people, especially Eli. He gives really good book boyfriend energy. There is a reveal about him halfway through, which I can imagine there are some people that don't like, but I thought was handled fine. There was a third act breakup, which honestly didn't need to be there, and I don't feel I can give a book 5 stars if we have an unnecessary third act breakup. So this was annoying because it was one of those third act breakups that like comes out of nowhere, and then like 2 chapters later, if that, they realize they want to be together, and I just find that irritating. Like, shorten the book for that point. But yeah, it was a fun read. And the third one, I don't know when that's coming out, but I will be interested to see if I like it because it's following one of the hockey players that I am less keen on, and we're kind of like going back to college now, so we'll see what I think of that, but I will definitely carry on the series. So then book 2 was The Undermining of Twyla and Frank by Megan Bannon. I'm glad that I finally got to this because I loved the first one. I gave it 5 stars. I did unfortunately only give this one 4 stars, but I did still really enjoy it. So this is a like fantasy romance, cozy fantasy series. I think if you like Legends and Lattes, you would really like this. I personally didn't like Legends and Lattes, but I can see that these books are similar. I just prefer this one. I think Megan's writing is better. I like the characters better. So this follows on from the first one. The first one is about Heart and Mercy. It's like an enemies to lovers. They really don't get on, but they're writing like secret pen pal letters to each other, and actually they were meant to be together. Very cute. Love. This one is following Twyla and Frank, who we very briefly meet in book 1. They are also marshals of the area, which means that they're sort of patrolling for magical beings and, you know, any threats that might be coming to the town. And they have been partners for a really long time. They've been friends all of that time, and these are like both characters in their 50s, and nothing's been happening since Hart, who we know from book 1, kind of steps down from being a Tamrian marshal. Like, nothing's really been going on. The world is a lot safer because of the events of book 1, until a baby dragon is discovered and like latches onto Frank, basically assumes that Frank is its dad, and then they've got to work out, what the heck do we do? That dragons are real. What do we do about that? Who do we tell? How are we going to keep this a secret? A dragon expert is brought in to, you know, to help them understand like whether the dragon is dangerous and learn more about the dragon. And Twyla kind of fancies him. You know, he's quite different to her husband, who passed away quite a long time ago from when the book is set. He's really different from her husband, but she thinks, well, what do I have to lose? Like, my kids are all grown up. I haven't dated anybody. I've literally not dated anyone since my husband died. Maybe I could date this dragon specialist. Frank starts acting really weirdly about that, and she doesn't understand why. She doesn't know why he might feel weird about this, and it progresses from there. It's a really cute friends to lovers. I think it's a really interesting friends to lovers because these are a lot older than the typical characters that I read. They've both been married. They're either widowed or their wife left them in the case of Frank. and they've had really difficult histories post that. Frank has been sleeping around, to be honest, and then Twyla has been with nobody. And so when Frank starts being funny about Twyla having relationships with the dragon specialist, she's like, how can you even comment on that? Like, you've lived a life, I haven't. I've just been a mum. That's all I've done. That's all I'm known as, and I want to discover myself as my own person. And I think that as somebody who is a bit younger in my life, it's kind of hard to put myself into Twyla's shoes. But I think that if you are a little bit older than me, I'm 32 for context. If you're a little bit older than me, I think you will find a lot to love in this book, especially if you have been in a relationship previously and it's ended, or you've lost your partner for any reason. I think this is a really, really like beautiful telling of that. And it's really lovely to like watch Twyla discover herself and who she is as not just mum Twyla, but as Twyla the person. And we have a lot of really fun with the side characters. So Duckers, who we know from book 1, is back in this book. I love Duckers. I think he's so fun, and there's a really interesting parallel between him being like 22 and Twyla and Frank being in their 50s. That's a really good parallel. The reason I didn't give this one 5 stars, despite the fact that actually I could follow the story a lot better, like the first one, it really puts you in the world and is just like, crack on. I'm not going to tell you anything about it, just go with it, and you either like that or you don't. And I was fine with it. But in this one, I actually really liked that we understood a lot more about the world. But the downside is that Twyla and Frank just do not communicate. And I understand that in a friends to lovers, we often don't communicate because you don't realise you have feelings for each other. But oh my gosh, did I want to bang these two's head together. And so I just think it was a bit too long. It was a bit too long of like, it took a long time before we got any kind of movement on the friends to lovers. And I just, yeah, it was a bit frustrating in that sense. And then we kind of do have a third act breakup in there as well, if you can call it that. So yeah, a little bit frustrating in that sense, but I did still really enjoy it. And I'm really excited to carry on this series. The next one is Rosie and Adam, and we don't know Adam yet. So I'm really interested to see what happens there, but we do get a bit of Rosie in this book. Then we have my best book of the month, Beg, Borrow or Steal by Sarah Adams. This is the 3rd book in the When in Rome series, and I can't wait for Maddie's book, book 4. The cover is stunning. But anyway, I'm here to talk about this one. So we have Emily, who's the eldest sister of the siblings that we see through these books. She's had a rival's relationship with Jack for a really long time, especially when they were both working as teachers. And then Jack gets in a relationship with somebody and just ups and leaves and goes and doesn't say goodbye to Emily. And even though they hated each other, she thought he would say goodbye. She still kind of deep down, I think, thought they were friends, and she was really hurt by that. And we're seeing Emily at the beginning of the story when all her siblings are moving on. This is the 3rd book, so 2 of her siblings have already settled down. And then Maddie, whose book is going to be book 4, is not living in Kentucky. She's moved away to New York. And Emily just feels completely alone. These siblings have all also lost their parents. So Emily has been used to being the eldest sister. She's not the eldest, but Noah like coped differently when their parents died. So Emily was the one that like kept them all together. She's always felt really needed, and now she's like, well, what do I have if my siblings don't need me? They've all got partners and Maddie's moved away. What am I gonna do? And this is it's a really like heartbreaking thing to watch Emily realize she's just really, really lonely. This is about to sound really weird, but I really like books about characters that realize they're lonely. That's the same theme as the first like undertaking of Heart and Mercy in that series, Megan Bannon. And yeah, I really liked that one for the same thing. Pause while I go and get my Subway. So I don't entirely remember what I was saying. Emily is writing a romance book, and that does form sort of part of the story in the background. But she goes to her normal coffee shop to write her romance novel, and Jack is sat there. And she didn't know that Jack was going to be back, and why is he back, and why didn't he tell her, and why didn't he say anything when he left? It then turns out that Jack's split up from his fiancée, and he's decided to move back, and he actually wants to put down roots in Rome, Kentucky, which is where these books are set. He was living in like the town over but working at the school there, and he's like, no, I'm back, this is where I want to live. And he buys the house next door to Emily, and obviously Emily's like, oh my god, we've been rivals our whole lives, and now you're buying the house next to me, what the hell is wrong with you? But Jack, he can't be away from her. And I just really liked this book. Like, I think that this was like rivals to lovers done really well. I will say I'm not entirely sure why these two were rivals. I think it's just part of like, Emily is just a competitive person. She'd be competitive with anybody, and Jack just matched her rather than letting her be the best at everything, which is how everyone else was about Emily. So he's sort of, yeah, the only person that can like match her on her level, and I just felt that was handled really well. Jack is a lovely book boyfriend. I'm a real fan of like a really, really nice guy book boyfriend, and I think Jack is definitely that. Like, he does match Emily in terms of like wit and things, but he's just lovely. And Emily like loving Jack with his glasses on was just like a really cute side plot. I read this book in a day, which is really rare for me to read a book in a day. I just had a great time. It was a really like kick your legs squeal. I'm also really glad that Sarah Adams is in her open door romance era now, because the second one, which I can't think of the name, Practice Makes Perfect, was a closed door, and that made no sense. Like, the whole book was about Will teaching Annie how to have sex, so it being a closed door romance just didn't work for me. And then she wrote this like bonus chapter and put it out online, and I was like, thank God. Clearly, Sarah Adams and her agents and publisher have had a conversation about how open door romance is where it's at, and that she needs to switch track. And I'm so grateful for it, because I just think she writes really good open door romance. She does let you know at the beginning of the book where those scenes are happening, and she says that the book can be read without them, and that's cool if that's your thing. It's not my thing. I would rather like have the smut scenes in there. I just don't think there's any point if a book is really working up to that and then we don't get the scene. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm glad for people that she writes it in the beginning so that you can see when they're coming if you want. I will say the downside for me as a reader meant that I knew they were coming like quite late in the book. I feel like that's not a spoiler because you can see that in the opening pages, that they're not coming until quite far through the book, and that was kind of disappointing for me to like not have the total surprise of knowing when those scenes were going to come. So that was a bit of a shame, but anyway, I get why she does it, and I still really like this book. It's my book of the month, 4.5 stars. Yeah, really good. I can talk pretty quickly about the next one, which is The Well of Lost Pots by Jasper Fforde. This is the third book in the Thursday Next series, which is about Thursday, who is a literary tech in this sort of like dystopian future of England. So this is where characters can like go inside books, they have controls of books, there's like evil villains who are trying to steal characters or steal plot points, and Thursday is kind of surrounded by all of these. It's difficult to say much more than that because these books are just wacky. They're so out there. It's really difficult to like talk about them but they are a good time. I only gave this one 3 stars, which is the same as what I rated the second one. I feel like there are parts of it which are total genius. There were a couple of chapters, and annoyingly, when you write like an update on Goodreads, it doesn't add it to your review, so that's annoying. But there are a couple of chapters which I felt were like complete genius. There was like this meeting of all these like book characters and bookish things, and those were like so funny. Like, really, just the satire was perfect. But the whole book, I think it's too long. I think the series is probably too long, which is a bit of a shame. But I still gave this one 3.5. If I said 3, I was wrong. I gave it 3.5 stars. I think I've marked it as 3 in my reading journal, but anyway, I gave it 3.5. And it's a little bit confusing, but I think that's also partly because I listen to it on audiobook and I dip in and out of my audiobook experience. But then I have given many audiobooks 5 stars, so take that with a pinch of salt, I guess. But yeah, I'm currently reading the 4th one. The audiobook narrator has changed, which is a real shame because I don't like them quite as much, but I'm trying to get through this series in preparation for the Jasper Fforde event. We'll see whether I do or don't. Then we have the first arc I read, which is Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston, which is a big arc for this month. I'll be honest, I just clicked on it on a whim on NetGalley. I didn't think I would get approved for it because I get approved for most arcs that I apply for, but not necessarily the big authors. So I was really shocked to get approved for this. So a big thank you to NetGalley and to the publisher for approving me for this one. This is my first full length Ashley Poston. I've only read a novella by her before, but I loved the novella. In this one, we have Joni, who is an LA songwriter. Her mum has early onset dementia, which obviously she's really struggling with, and she's basically forgotten how to write songs. And then one night she's at a gig watching one of the people that she's written songs for perform, and Sebastian, who is a kind of ex-pop star, you know, he's sort of 10 years on from his career, is also there. And he is a bit of an idiot, to be honest. He's like very full of himself. He puts on this like real act to Joni, and she's not really a fan, but his flirting kind of gets under her skin and she is attracted to him, and so they kiss. And immediately after that, she's like, oh my God, no, this was a total mistake, runs away from him. But she then realizes that she can hear the thoughts of somebody, and she doesn't connect the two, that this voice is Sebastian. She just suddenly starts hearing this male voice, and she can literally hear what he's saying and he can hear what she's saying, like what they're thinking. And they sort of build a bit of a connection while this is happening, I guess, as you would if you could literally hear how somebody thinks. And particularly he can hear Joni has very loud thoughts. Obviously she is really worried about her mum, and so there's a lot going on in her brain, and this voice is really like supportive of her and really like talks her through some stuff. And the more she thinks about it, the more she's like, am I attracted to the voice? Like, he really knows me now and he's so supportive. And they agree to meet more on the premise of trying to get rid of each other's voices in their heads. And when they meet, Joni then realizes it's Sebastian, and he does know it's her, but he didn't know that like the whole time, but he had worked it out kind of a few days before they meet. And I thought we were going to have a massive blow up about that, but thankfully we didn't. I think Joni was able to acknowledge like why Sebastian kept it to himself, and then the two of them kind of realize that they've got this song playing in their heads, and that's the thing that seems to be connecting them. So they agree to write the song, and that will hopefully get it out of their system. It's such a unique premise. Like, Ashley Poston writes magic realism, and I think that it was really interesting to like have this idea of like, what if you could literally hear another person's thoughts. I thought that was handled really well. There were a couple of times where I think it wasn't perfect, but I think it must be so hard as an author to imagine like having somebody's thoughts in your head all the time. So I felt like it was handled like as well as I think it could have been. Ashley Poston doesn't really write like particularly steamy. I would say she's quite similar to Emily Henry, if you like Emily Henry. It is a romance, but it is really a contemporary as well. Like the character will be dealing with something like big, and both Sebastian and Joni are dealing with a lot, especially Joni, with the mum having early onset dementia. And so the romance really takes a like backseat, and I think we only have like one scene really where they sleep together, and it's not particularly detailed. So if you're also looking for a book that's not particularly steamy, which is not necessarily what I read, but if you would like that, I think you'd like this book. It's a real love letter to music. If you're somebody that likes Billy Joel and Queen and the Beatles and a lot of bands that I've not heard of, I think this is a real love letter to music. And I think that's ultimately why I couldn't give this one a 5-star, because a lot of it is focused on music, and there's like each chapter is named after a song, and I don't know a lot of the songs, I don't know a lot of the artists, and so I couldn't quite connect to it on like a 5-star level. But I still thought it was really good. It really deserved the 4-star. It was really well written, it was really enjoyable. I think that it's quite predictable, to be honest, but I don't really know what else I thought it could have done. I thought that the mum having dementia was handled really well. It was very rough to read. It was a bit, but handled really well with great care. So yeah, I would really recommend this book. Okay, then last up we have, unfortunately, the most disappointing read of the month for me, which is Book for the Summer by Catherine Freeman, which I also read as an ARC. I would like to caveat this by, I read another book by Catherine Freeman, which I can't think of the name, I'll put it on screen, but I really enjoyed that. I gave it 4 stars. It was the first ARC I ever read. And so I was so excited to read another book by Catherine, but unfortunately this one was not for me. So we have Jade, who works in a really boring publishing job, and I felt honestly that was a misstep from the beginning, because a lot of people who read would kill to have like an admin assistant job in a publisher's. Jade hates her job, and so she takes this random job in Nantucket in Massachusetts to run a bookstore for 3 months in the summer, and the publishing house are very supportive and let her do that. I'm sorry, I don't think a publishing house would let somebody do that, and she has no skills in this area. She has absolutely nothing about her that would make her like, obviously she reads and she works for a publisher, but she has no skills to run a bookstore. That's problem number 1. As soon as she gets there, she sleeps with a really attractive hotel owner. I don't think she knows that he's the hotel owner at that point, and her bookstore is like on the same street as the hotel. I don't think she knows he's the hotel owner, admittedly, but anyway, she sleeps with him on night 1. They then realize that he is the hotel owner, and he's trying to like own the entire strip, because he was really poor growing up and he got bullied for being poor, and now he's wealthy but with new money, and so he's trying to like take over the whole strip to get back at everybody. And so he's going to knock down this tiny bookstore in order to build these very expensive houses for rich people on the water. And Jade is like, you can't do that. I'm going to save the bookstore for this town that I do not know, have just moved to, have no skill set in order to work at this bookstore for. I am going to fight to keep it, and I'm going to rally everyone around me, and because I'm so lovable, everyone's going to want to do that. And they do, and it has that like small town feeling in that way, and that was something the author was trying to achieve, and I think she does achieve that. But like, why do they all side with Jade? Why? Like, I'm not sure she's that lovable. And the guy, Liam, was like really difficult to like. He is very grumpy, and that is like a trait about him. My real issue then comes into the fact that this is a real insta love. Like, they literally sleep together in chapter 3, so there's no like lead up to that. If you don't like insta love, absolutely avoid this book. And then a lot of the book is about Jade dealing with the fact that she doesn't want to be like known for being a tart. She's like blonde, she's got big boobs, and people like assume the wrong thing about her. Fair enough, I'm sure that does happen. But she then is constantly like battling with like, oh, but I've fallen into the trope because of like what people think about me because I slept with this guy immediately, but also I did really fancy him, and maybe it's okay if I sleep with him, but also he's horrible. He's trying to like destroy the town, but also he's like not destroying the town because actually he's a good guy. But then they are really fighting. There's like an enemies to lovers portion of this in the middle, and then they kind of like realize that actually they do have feelings for each other. So you then don't get them sleeping together until right at the end, and so that doesn't work. That that like roller coaster is like this. And it just, so that was just odd. It also was very much trying to be like, you know, oh, Jade is not just a dumb blonde, but also Liam refers to her amazing boobs all the time. I just didn't like the writing style for this either. Like, it was very repetitive. I felt we just didn't need the majority of the story. And there was things like the globes of her ass was like a thing that was said so many times, and I've never heard somebody's bum described as globes before, but now I have. And there was a lot of trying to like hint that like one character is British and one character is American, but in like a slightly clunky way. And I also just found it weird that this book was set in Nantucket. It was originally meant to be set in the Maldives, which makes a lot more sense. Like, I just don't think that somebody would uproot their life to move to America for 3 months to run a bookstore when they've like never traveled anywhere and never run a bookstore. I can understand it more though that you would move from England to Europe for 3 months. Like, that makes more sense to me. I had problems with this one. I will say though, it's a really quick read. I read it in 2 days, and whilst I only gave it 2.5 stars, like, I definitely think there is an audience for this. If you are looking for a really, really light, fun summer book, this is it. It's just I needed like a bit more depth, and I needed a slightly different writing style, but I can absolutely see the audience for this book. And I think especially if you like a like broody billionaire, very attractive guy who speaks about women and he's not ever rude about Jade. He's very, very lovely about Jade, but he does talk about her body a lot. And if that is something that you would find attractive in a male main character, you may also like this book for that reason. So that's it. Those are the 6 books that I read in May. In the main, a really good reading month, and I'm excited for my reading plans for June. But I picked up a really random book yesterday, thinking I could read the whole thing in a day, and I fell asleep 3 chapters in, so I can't wait to come back to you and talk about my June reading. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate a like, and if you haven't already, I would love it if you would subscribe. In the description, I will have a link to the playlist if you want to see more about my reading journal videos, and I'll also have a link to my Instagram and my Goodreads, which, especially my Goodreads, you might find interesting to keep up to date on my reading as it happens. Otherwise, I'll see you in my next video. Bye!